When the situation in Ukraine carries on, we run the risk of everyone losing. Welcome to Eagle News Channel. As U.S. military aid to Ukraine continues to rise, Russia's defense budget continues to rise unchecked, increasing the likelihood that this conflict will drag on for a long time and wreaking havoc on both sides. When speaking with his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky at a joint press conference at the White House on December 21, U.S. Vice President Joe Biden assured Zelensky that the United States will always support Kiev. The United States recently revealed a new $1.85 billion security assistance package for Ukraine, which features the Patriot contemporary air defense missile system. If American Patriot systems were to show up in Ukraine, the Kremlin has said they would be fair game. Russia further charged that the United States was raising the prospect of direct conflict by boosting arms supply to Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin told top military generals Wednesday that the government will spend as much money as it takes to keep its armed forces happy. In light of the West's belief that the Kremlin can prepare for a protracted and expensive battle in Ukraine, this is considered as an indication that Russia will dramatically expand military spending in the near future. In November, U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman General Mark Milley warned of the danger of an arms race that might extend the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Mr. Milley continued by saying that Ukraine couldn't defeat Russia militarily and urged Kiev to use the upper hand they currently enjoy to negotiate a peace settlement. To illustrate that wasted opportunities can bring greater suffering for humanity, General Milley remembered the period of World War I when the parties refused to talk, resulting in millions more dead. Milley's statements stood in stark contrast to those of Kiev and many of its allies, including Poland, the Baltic states, North America, and Britain, all of which back Ukraine in its pursuit of absolute military triumph. The only road to peace is to push Russia out of Ukraine, Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas said. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's peace plan, unveiled in November, follows a similar line of thinking. Experts warn that a decisive military triumph may take years to achieve, and that the West cannot control the political variables that will determine when the conflict finally ends. London School of Economics history professor and international studies expert Vladislav Zubok argues that supporters of the fight to the finish option believe the West should keep arming and funding the Ukrainian military until Russia concedes. Combat situations, however, are notorious for their complexity and violence. The war of attrition in eastern and southern Ukraine has been costly for Russia and Kiev and the West during the past few months. Ukraine's economy is in rapid fall and its energy infrastructure has been wrecked, posing a humanitarian disaster this winter as around 7 million people have been forced to seek refuge abroad. The aid Ukraine receives from the United States and Europe helps the country stay strong and resilient. However, Western backing is beginning to wane as the European economy risks recession because of the energy issue. However, Russian soldiers are bolstering their defenses in eastern and southern Ukraine despite suffering heavy losses on the battlefield. Since September, the Ukrainian army's pace in their counteroffensive has stalled due to Russian defenses and natural difficulties. The best-case scenario for Ukraine would be if Russian military withdrew from the 4 provinces they currently occupy. Many Ukrainians, however, worry that even if this occurs, Moscow will just retreat and regroup before launching another invasion. According to Zubok, Russia is still a powerful country with relatively solid military, economic, and political potential despite being exposed to an unprecedented sequence of sanctions from the West. The strength of the Russian military will be put to the test next winter, but experts do not expect a decline. Good economic resilience can also be shown in the Russian economy. It was widely believed that Russia would be unable to survive a barrage of severe sanctions from the West and would be forced to pull its soldiers out of Ukraine as soon as possible. According to Zubok, Western economic sanctions are having an effect on Russia but are insufficient to bring an end to the conflict. When compared to what many experts had feared, 2022's 3% decline in Russia's economy was surprisingly mild. Even Western optimists are unsure of how successful the G7's oil price ceiling will be at reducing Russia's oil revenues. conflict in Ukraine would reach a stalemate if Russia does not limit its defense budget and continues to support all the needs of the military, despite pressure from the West, Professor Zubok said. At a meeting on December 21, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu recommended increasing the number of the armed forces from 1.15 million troops to 1.5 million, including 695,000 professional soldiers. The age range for mandatory military duty would go from 18 to 30 years old, as proposed by General Shoigu. Putin, the president, approved of the suggestions. Zubok claims that the vast majority of Russians still back the regime and refuse to acknowledge defeat. They still see President Putin as the one who will protect Russia's independence and stability. With the current state of affairs, he stated, Ukraine is unlikely to achieve a military victory substantial enough to convince the Kremlin to accept to sit down at the settlement table. In his opinion, the West is taking a dangerous route by continuing to ship weapons to Ukraine. As a result, Ukrainians are constantly put in harm's way. The number of casualties and economic toll will only increase, says Mr. Zubok. It also encourages Russian nationalists that they must win or die, the author writes, referring to Putin's notion that Russia is at war with the West. The German High Command accepted the armistice that would conclude World War I in November 1918 after hearing President Woodrow Wilson's 14-point proposal. According to Professor Zubok, this is the strategy the West should explore for the Ukraine crisis to minimize the risk of a protracted war bringing considerable damage to all parties. The West has so far solely utilized the stick tactic with Russia, escalating sanctions and embargoes, while at the same time giving constant financial and military backing for Ukraine. On the other hand, Zubok believes that carrots, such the progressive relaxation of sanctions or security guarantees for Russia, should be present on the route to a peaceful solution. However, observers suggested it would be difficult for both Russia and Ukraine to convince the groups to sit down at the bargaining table. Ukrainian officials and many of their allies refuse to negotiate peace accords until Russia accepts defeat and cancels whatever security guarantees they might have been promised. It is the responsibility of the United States and other Western powers, Zubok argued, to persuade Kiev that an absolute stance will only draw out the conflict to the detriment of the Ukrainian people. The lecturer from the University of London acknowledges that it is currently difficult to forecast the long-term implications of the crisis in Ukraine with precision. The sides will be motivated to establish a comprehensive strategy that will bring peace to Ukraine and secure Russia's future because of the perception of uncertainty if the war carries on. He argued that the West should stop waiting to react to the newest acts by Moscow and Kiev and instead take the initiative to find a road to peace rather than hoping for Russia to fail. Professor Zubok emphasized that the longer the battle lasts, the more disastrous the repercussions will be and everyone will be on the losing side. According to Zhu Feng, a professor of international affairs at Nanjing University in China, the current Russia-Ukraine confrontation is nothing more than a proxy war. More global shocks will be caused as the battle continues. Support the channel by like and share the video. Don't forget to press the subscribe button and the bell to receive the latest news. Thanks for watching.